super glad to be here with you guys. Thank you for coming. It means a lot for us. So let's speak a little bit about LatAm, then we will have a great panel, much more better than listening myself. So, let's begin with LatAm. So, Latin America is an incredible market. It's more or less $80 billion market. 7 markets account for, let's say, 80% of the business throughout Latin America. So you've got a lot of fragmentation there. 2 of the top 4 markets in the world in terms of growing e-commerce are from Latin America, Mexico and Brazil. And it seems very nearby, right? So you feel like it's same continent, almost same time zone. However, it's very hard to dominate. It's very complex. It's very different. It's operational friction-full. So US-based sellers are not selling that much to LatAm. There is a very large blue ocean there, but there is no being able to, let's say, grow the base in those markets. So why do you think sellers are not selling across Latin America? There are maybe 3 main reasons, maybe there are more. The first one is focus and time. So there are many sellers here. If you are a seller, you need to prioritize where to sell. You will pick up the US first, right? US is a very large market. It's very complex to sell there. It's very complex to price. It's very complex to compete. Secondly, if you want to grow and expand, you will select maybe Europe, maybe Canada, maybe Asia. LatAm is like 10% of the world. So if you want to go to LatAm, you need to make it frictionless, right? Because too much energy for a small market doesn't make sense. So time is the first problem for sellers not willing to sell in Latin America, things being like this. The second reason is friction-full operations. Okay, so 7 markets make 80% of the market share for e-commerce. You need to open local entities in all those markets. That's a nightmare. You need to pay taxes. You need to understand the fiscal problems, the monetary issues. The FX is very unstable. Politics are hard. Regulations are all the time changing. So a lot of problems. The second problem inside the same operational problem is that there is no one winner takes all as in the US. Okay, so if you are thinking on selling across marketplaces, 85% of sales comes online in Brazil, comes from marketplaces, 85%. But there is no one player, there is no Amazon. Okay, it's Amazon there, but it's not like in the US. So you have like, let's say 5 in Brazil that matters, 15 in Latin America that makes 80% of the share. That's a lot of integrations, a lot of like understanding stock, understanding price, how to categorize all those products, how to do customer support in Portuguese, in Spanish, blah, 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 blah. So that's a lot of operational friction. And the third one, last but not least, selling is hard. So it's not copy and paste. You are not selling the same as Amazon Brazil as in the US. You are not selling the same Carrefour Brazil than Walmart Mexico. The same glass you want to sell in those marketplaces are categorized differently. Ads are different, so programs for advertising are different. You need to be prepared to price. What's the competition? Is my product in that market? Is it in Mexico? Is it in Chile? Is it in Colombia? What's the price? Like, it's a nightmare to sell in Latin America. The good answer is that first time in the history of e-commerce is that you can have now one single solution, one-stop shop to sell in all those marketplaces while getting your focus in the US markets. And that's not enough. So we have been, during the last 6 years, more or less, trying to mirror and understand how Amazon operates with sellers here in the US. What are your pains as sellers? And how to make it so frictionless for you that you feel like you are selling locally, but in 7 markets across 15 marketplaces. And that's what we do. So we will pick you up your products in California, in New York, in Chicago, in LA. We will do fulfillment on your behalf. We will pay you in advance in dollars. You don't need to think about exchange. You don't need to think about categorization. You don't need to think about nothing, but just connecting with us and we do everything on your behalf. In a world where the economy is being hard, Temu, Shein, TikTok are gaining market share here in the US. It's getting complicated. Amazon is started to stop buying inventory to thousands of sellers. So the question is not how to grow globally, but how to make it mandatory as a strategy for diversification. And Knock counts as a partnership for diversification, as a partnership for survival, in a way that you can focus and get fresh air here in the US. So first of all, thank you for being here again and seeing our speakers coming. Thanks for partnering with us. Thanks for trusting us. We will do the hard work of selling and operating in LatAm, but we want you to be connected with Latin America. We want you to understand, to be educated about what's going on in this region. So that we are starting this year with our first of its kind Unlock LatAm event. It will be a spectacular lineup for starting. We will have Paulo from Valor, Mariano from Vitex, Sergio from The Local, Fred from Magazine Luiza, Roman from Bank of America. We will have John from Payoneer, and it will be an amazing conversation how cross-border can be done from here in the US to LatAm in a very simplest way. You can ask them a lot of questions if you want as well. I will first start with Mariano and Sergio. If you can please come here. So let me very shortly introduce them. Maybe you can clap them or you can welcome them. You can sit there, yeah, whatever you want. So Sergio, founder and chief strategy officer of The Local, Mariano, founder and CEO of Vitex, two unicorns, two publicly traded companies, giants in e-commerce out of LatAm. So super admirable person for people and entrepreneurs. I've got a couple of questions to them, and if there is time, you can ask them directly. So Mariano, you start. Yeah, sorry. It's self-made. So Vitex started 25 years ago?
Yes, 24 years.
That's a lot of time. Can you let us know a little bit more? How do you get it from the start to here, very shortly?
So we started in Rio, mechanical engineering from a public university in Rio. We bootstrapped up to 2011, so 11 years fully funded ourselves. Of course, for that we need to make money, so we learned to be very lean and to discover ourselves. We closed our first biggest client in 2007. That was Walmart. That made Vitex a company to the world. We opened the company to countries outside of Brazil in 2012. So we came from around 4 clients in 2008 to 232 clients in Brazil 2012. From 232 clients in Brazil to 2,000 clients in 20 countries in 2017. 2021 we did the IPO. Now we are in 43 countries. We have operations on clients like Samsung, Whirlpool, KitchenAid, Electrolux, Mondelez, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, OBI, Hearst Corporation, like many others. So 2.4 thousand companies around the world trust their e-commerce operations in our platform. And I believe that that's it. It's the first technology company that is coming out of Latin America to be in New York Stock Exchange, publicly traded, and succeeding and leader in the world. So we are really proud of what we are doing.
Impressive. Thank you, Mariano. Sergio, so you've got a similar story. The local is, I was with Diego, part of the starting team there, so we know it in our blood. So tell us, what do you do? Tell us, I don't know, what are you solving? What problems are you solving here in the US to merchants, and why the local is being used for by Amazon, by Google, by Uber?
Yeah, Kevin. Good. You mentioned before a word that is key, which is a friction. There is a lot of friction in Latin America, and there is friction mostly in two parts of the process, which is payments and logistics. Now, you guys were smart to identify that one of the issues is movement of physical goods. We started solving the issue of friction in payments. Most the typical cycle of a tech startup would be we start selling in the US, then we go to Europe, maybe after that Japan, and then you go to Latin America. And in those cases, you go to those places with supporting the same payment methods that you used originally for the US and Europe. But then the issue that companies find is that these payment methods are broken in that part of the world. Are broken in the sense that, I mean, it's not that they don't work, they do work. But first of all, many people have cards that are not necessarily internationally enabled. Sometimes they are debit cards, and in many cases, the debit cards are not enabled for international transactions. There are some other schemes other than Visa and MasterCard that are very, very popular. You have the likes of, I don't know, Elo in Brazil, or Verve, if you're talking about Nigeria. And every country has its own different schemes, Oka in Uruguay. But the other thing is that lately, all the alternative payment methods became very, very popular. And we're talking about things like Pix in Brazil, which has completely obliterated debit cards for now, and they're going after credit cards next. You have, of course, UPI in India. So bottom line, if you want really to sell into Latin America, and again, going back to what you were saying before, you need to customize your offering for those places, but you also need to adapt to local payment methods, because otherwise your marketing dollars are not going to have the same, you're not going to get the same bang for your buck, and you'll have a very low conversion rate. And that's where we get in. We allow the largest companies in the world to accept today, it's over 900 different payment methods in the geographies that we support. And essentially at the end of the day, what we are setting is conversion rate. We are setting a higher conversion rate with just one integration, what we call one local. So we ask our customers, they need to just sign one agreement, have one financial counterparty, one reconciliation, and one technical integration. So it's an elevator pitch for a very long building, very, very tall building.
Yeah, that's nice. Guys, for the two of you, what would be your saying on the main characteristics of LatAm versus other markets like the US or emerging markets? What's typically different that the US-based sellers are suffering while trying to enter Latin America? Whatever you want to start.
On a B2C is one reality, and on B2B is another one. On B2B, I have a quote that is Latin Americans, they buy from the person. Europeans and Americans, they buy from the company. So the human connection means a lot when it matters to B2B deals in LatAm. So if you're a French company or German company or American company and you go to Brazil and say you want to sell like software, you will not do it without a Brazilian team, without a Chilean team, without a Peruvian team, without local. So on a B2B, that's it. On a B2C, I don't see this barrier. We are seeing a lot of foreigners coming in. When it comes to a physical operation, that's a little bit different because the market on the physical operation, you need to have years of experience because the margins are too high. So I don't see a strong barrier for companies coming from abroad to enter in Brazil or LatAm overall. One thing is, it's a fact that the Latin Americans admires the French, the British, American brands. So normally you believe, say, oh, I'm gonna go to Latin America and I need to put like a bet on inventory on the legal entities and everything. So you just don't need anything on that. You already have the brand. Probably you do have a lot of searches coming from that. You just don't have the payments. You just don't have the logistics available. So that's an example of the Chinese brands. They ignore this kind of a paradigm and just start selling to Latam. And now they are, I believe, 20-30% of Latin American market. It is coming from China. So it is more in the conservative approach of the American companies and the European companies than anything else.
Trisha? I don't know. I can talk about Latin America for hours, but just a couple of things. First of all, there is no country called Latin America. So you see many times people say, okay, we'll go to Latin America. But Brazil is completely different from Mexico. It's completely different from Argentina. It's completely different from Chile. And especially in the market that we operate in, which is essentially the financial services market, even though there may be common cultures within some parts of the countries, regulations are completely different. And I always say that regulations normally are forged based out of trauma, and different countries have experienced different trauma over the history. So the regulations tend to be completely different. You have you have Argentina with all its problems and its own specific trauma. So the regulator puts a lot of emphasis on certain things. Mexico, it's a completely different set of regulation. Brazil, completely different. So you need to localize in so many respects. The tax regulations are completely different. As you know, Brazil, the Brazilian tax system, even internally, is a nightmare. Is it? I don't know. You tell me. You know more about it than I do. So every country is quite different. Even in small example, has to do with language. When we started processing in Colombia, we had a very, very high rejection rate. The conversion rate was very low. And we didn't know what was happening. So we got a local guy, and he took a look. We had back then the redirection checkout experience. So you'd go from the merchant side to our checkout page, and then you had to fill out the form with the credit card data and so on, then tax information, and then you could click confirm or cancel. And over 50% of people were clicking on cancel. Because in Colombia, you cancel a bill. When you're paying a bill, you cancel a bill. So that's a very small example.
They want me to give it to you.
This works better. Share it. Okay, I'll speak without you. It's a small crowd, we can speak without you. So yeah, you need to take into consideration the nuances of each one of those countries, which are quite different, and you need locals for that. You cannot do it. You cannot have a Chilean managing Peru. It's a different culture. It has to do a lot with what Mariano was just saying. People want to have the local touch.
And you are mentioning about differences between countries. Can you highlight Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Colombia? Like you guys, can you highlight some differences that may be relevant for U.S. sellers thinking about selling in those countries? What are important things to take into considerations?
I would say that the addressable market. Hello?
Yeah. Is it working?
Hello?
We can use it without it.
Hello?
We can hear you fine. Yeah. Sorry.
So I believe the addressable market, it's what should come first. Brazil probably is the biggest one. And it is a completely different from the other countries of LatAm, mainly because of language. So one thing is to go to Brazil, another thing is to go to Spanish Latin America. And if you are a B2C company, I would go to Colombia, Mexico, and Argentina. That would be my choices. Argentina is an opportunity, has always been. It's not the bumps of the last 7 years that took the opportunity from the country. So I still a big bias, optimistic for Argentina. Colombia is a machine. It's work ethics, consumption power. It's pretty easy to do business in Colombia, and let's put in consideration that's 3 hours from Miami, so it's pretty easy. And Mexico is where everybody's betting, right? Mexico is the land to be conquered. E-commerce, industrialization, so a lot of moving parts. The thing that you should consider in Mexico is that it's pretty consolidated in few families, all the power of distribution for B2C and B2B. So if you want to move to Mexico, you probably call one of the big families in Mexico. That's the way to go. So that's 2 or 3 words on LatAm go-to-market.
Sergio, you have a lot of experience in Argentina, in Peru. Any comments?
Well, they say that Argentina is the country of the future, and will always be. It's those are challenging markets, and it's rough waters. Regulations tend to change very often, but on the other side, when you're catching a good wave in Argentina, you can make a killing. But of course, you cannot invest for the very long term because the cycles have been quite short. I don't know, 4 years, 5 years. In countries like Brazil, you can invest it for a longer term. But again, if you're catching Argentina during the good times, you can really make much higher margins because you have less competition. And this type of things tend to happen in different countries. These days, Bolivia is a very challenging country to do business. Chile used to be the stable one. Now it's a bit more choppy, not to the same levels. Again, each country has its own geopolitics, its own politics, different economic cycles. You need to be tailored to each one of those. Different price sensitivities. Ideally, you need to have a local managing each one of the countries. It doesn't have to be in the country, but you want a local to know the nuances.
I want to complement, to add something. You need to have someone to decide to go to LatAm as a brand or a company or any investment that you're going to put to that region. You need to be aware that it's a long journey. It's not like a US that you blast in marketing and you're going to have the market or not, and it's more binary. LatAm is a more consistent game, and under this consistency, you will see choppy countries, politically, currency, legally, and that's fine. Nobody invests less or more in LatAm because of that. It's like change the pace that you deploy capital, but at the end of the day, the best investments that I ever made in LatAm was always counter-cycle. When is everything really bad in Argentina, that's when you need to be there. Because it's gonna be really good in 5 or 10 years. Of course, we do have the example of Venezuela. And that's a little bit more than what was the history of LatAm. So besides that case, LatAm is a choppy, amazing market. So that's...
Guys, you've got in front of you 2 of the most important entrepreneurs in Latin America. Do you want to ask them any question?
Why would you say Argentina is the country of the future?
And it will always be. That was the punchline.
It's a Uruguayan joke.
No, seriously, I think that I'm very optimistic about Argentina in the short term. The policies that this government is taking are very, very market friendly. It's been a very, very unstable market, so let's hope there is some consistency going forward.
So I actually had a question for you, since you do a lot of the payment processing. Have you seen a lot of these countries deal with a lot more cryptocurrency payments, especially with things like countries like El Salvador really adopting things like Bitcoin? Is that a big thing in that market?
It's I get asked that question quite a lot. As a region, Latin America has the highest penetration of crypto probably anywhere in the world. That's a good thing. The bad thing is that normally it's used to evade taxes or regulations. So that's the worst part. Overall, there are two opposing tendencies today. One is crypto, which is completely free movement of money and currencies. And on the other direction, you have regulators essentially pushing to know every transaction, who is paying whom for what. And crypto is saying, okay, this is completely anonymous. So these two forces are pushing in completely different directions. The question is, which of those forces is going to be? If I needed to bet, I would bet on the side of a government. Having said that, you have some amazingly interesting projects like Drex in Brazil, which is a type of CBDC. It's quite unique in the sense that you will have the digital real with digital treasuries essentially. So you'll be able to invest in a very seamless way. I see that as a way forward rather than the traditional crypto, which is completely free and unregulated. But that's my personal view. I'm not a big expert on it.
Anyone else? Two more.
Yeah. So you guys are all success cases of local Latin American entrepreneurs building within the region. What do you think of the international companies that you're competing against and how you stand up against them? Advantages, disadvantages being local.
Perfect. So we compete against SAP, Salesforce, Shopify, mainly. One thing is we are the only founder-led controlling company fighting against them. And in terms of speed and velocity, a founder-led public company can do very fast comparing to giants. And the market's changing very fast. So I believe that's why we are thriving. We can answer to the market in a speed that they don't even dream about it. So that's one. The second one is it's our own money there. 95% of my exposition is still in the company. And that's why in the 24 years, we were 20 years profitable. Only 3 years in our history, we burned money. And in US, the last 15 years was the land of burning, right? And so the machines of our competitors are not oiled to a profitable world. That's why we are seeing the competitors right now is still burning and reducing FTEs and reducing FTEs. And at the end of the day, they prefer to quit and go to another company than to save their own company. So that's opening space for us. Many of our competitors are facing problems, operational problems. So I believe the work ethics, the creative engineering of Latin America prepare the company to fight big companies anywhere. So we can, I can give you an example. We won a contract that's public. We won a client, Oshkosh in the United States, a big military provider. They build 50% of the fire trucks of all United States cities. and we won against Oracle. That's like a history-made American software company, and we won because we provide them a security level that Oracle could not match.
Wow.
And the CIO said, I was not expecting that. From a Latin American, that's a lot of prejudgment. But that's about to change. That's all about the Indian kind of founded companies as well. The creative engineering is not, the assets are not being made in US. They are being arbitrated by American companies, but now is the time for being arbitrated by outsiders using the US market. And I believe that's all over. So we're going to see, at least in my opinion, more and more companies from global perspective that can address Asia as we can address Europe, as we can address the United States coming out of LatAm. It's not only us, it is going to come dozens of more companies.
Sorry, if I may add something. It used to be that technical talent was concentrated in a few locations, mostly Silicon Valley. But you had lots of talent coming from Latin America and other parts of the world. Today, with remote work and remote education and everything, you can have talent anywhere. Actually, let's face it, most Latin American people would prefer to live in Latin America, and they migrate because they see opportunity, but that is no longer the case. So we have very high density of talent throughout Latin America. What we were lacking before is scaling. And if there is one legacy I'd like to leave, and I think Mariano is going to agree with me, is essentially the mission and the heart of Endeavor, which is showing a way to new people and showing that companies can scale out of Latin America and that it's possible to build a world-class company out of tiny Uruguay or Brazil or Argentina or anywhere else.
Yeah, it's an engineering arbitrage. For example, the most sell airplane for private matters in the United States, it is built by a Brazilian company. The software company behind the Wisconsin farms, it is coming from Brazil. So there are 5 regions in the world providing the root assets of engineering. It's not the high-level engineering management, it's the root, the assets. China, first one, 750,000 a year. Russia and India, second one, 620, 630,000 engineers a year. Then we do have 2 other regions, Eastern Europe, 330, and Latin America, 240. All of the other 4 regions are compromised. So that's why Amazon, Oracle, AWS, Walmart, like Facebook, Google, they're all hiring in Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, Mexico, not too much, but this is going to be an arbitrage of security nearshoring on the main asset for the AI world, that's engineering. And I believe the new US president needs to address that, because today the relationship in between US and Latin America is far from what can be, right? And someone needs to step forward and say, okay, let's fix that. That's my take.
Okay, thank you, Sergio, Marian.
Thank you.
Ceci, welcome. So first of all, before next panel, I want to say thanks for the team and Cecilia there. Thanks a lot. Cecilia was the leading everything from Montevideo, so thanks her and all the team. Diego, co-founder, chief commercial officer. Sofia there, VP of sales and partnerships. Seba, SVP of revenue, and our team is there in Google Meet, some of them. So thanks. They will be their main faces you will be looking for in the next days and for sure years.